Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to our Shirin Svasamas Parshas Nitzavim Tavshin Pei. We find that Moshe Rabeinu at the end of his life is telling Klal Yisrael and discussing with Klal Yisrael what the future is going to hold for them. And Moshe Rabeinu begins the Parsha by telling them, Atem Nitzavim Hayoim Kulchem Lefnei Hashem Elokeichem. You are standing before the Rabbanu Shalom Lefnei Hashem Elokeichem. And then Moshe Rabeinu goes on to discuss the bris and the potential curses that can come Chalil if Klal Yisrael doesn't do what they're supposed to be doing, and goes on to give over the reins from Moshe Rabeinu to Yeshua. Says Rashi, Atem Nitzavim. What does Moshe Rabeinu mean when he says Atem Nitzavim? You are standing. Sha'asa Isa Matseva. Moshe Rabeinu made them into a Matseva. He stood them upright like a Matseva, like a monument which is standing upright. Koydem Shiyatza Merishusay LeYeshua. Before he left the Rishus, before they left the Rishus of Moshe Rabeinu and went over to the Rishus of Yeshua, before the Dar, the generation that are Baya Aretz, are entering into Eretz Yisrael, Moshe Rabeinu said, Atem Nitzavim, I'm going to stand you up. Ask the Heligas Vasemes. What exactly is Moshe Rabeinu standing them up from? Where have they fallen? Why is Moshe Rabeinu standing them up? And why now at the end of Moshe Rabeinu's life? What exactly is the symbolism? And Atem Nitzavim, the only time we find that Moshe Rabeinu talks to Klal Yisrael this way, Atem Nitzavim, you're a matzeva, you're a monument. What exactly is Moshe Rabeinu trying to do at the end of his life? And why specifically right before they go into Eretz Yisrael? What is Moshe Rabeinu telling Klal Yisrael? What message is Moshe Rabeinu giving the Dar B'Yei Aretz as they leave his rule and go over into the reigns of Yeshua? Zakta Eligas Vasam is an unbelievable thing. Inyan hu Kibnei Yisrael nechshelu b'cheta ego. Klal Yisrael had fallen not just with a simple avera. Klal Yisrael had fallen with the greatest avera since Adam Arishan eating from the Eitz Hadas. Klal Yisrael had gone ahead and created an egel and went ahead and danced around the egel saying Eila Elohecha Yisrael. And Moshe Rabeinu, the leader, had seen that and witnessed that. When he came down from Har Sinai holding the luchas and watched Klal Yisrael dancing around the egel, had seen the spiritual destruction that Klal Yisrael caused when they did the Cheta Egel. Afal Pikin. Nevertheless, Moshe Rabeinu is a true leader. Moshe Rabeinu does not say, okay, there's nothing I can do. You people have fallen to such a terrible state. I can't really help you. Or Moshe Rabeinu doesn't say, I'm worried about myself. I'm not worried about the people. Afal Pikin says this. Moshe Rabeinu says, I am not leaving this world until I can stand you back up and teach you the ways of tshuva and allow you to get back up after a fall like the Cheta Egel and be able to get to the place of a makam shebali tshuva oimdim. Moshe Rabeinu says, I'm not leaving this world. And therefore, all the way to the end of Moshe Rabeinu's life, and the last day of Moshe Rabeinu's life, Moshe Rabeinu is finally capable of Atem Nitzavim Hayayim, of standing up this generation and saying, you may have fallen, you may have done the Cheta Egel, you may have had a terrible Yerida, but Atem Nitzavim Hayayim. Now you're able to stand back up. Now you're able to stand upright. Now you're able to stand tall and erect like a monument, because now you know that you're able to have gotten up from the terrible Yerida of the Cheta Egel. Moshe Rabeinu, as a true leader, says, I'm not leaving this world until I know that Atem Nitzavim Hayayim Kulchem Lefnei Hashem Elokeichem, until you're standing once again before the Rabbanu Shalom after the terrible fall of the Cheta Egel. Moshe Rabeinu says, I'm not leaving this world. And therefore, the last day of Moshe Rabbeinu's life, what does he say? Atem Nitzavim. Now you're standing. Says this Vasemes, this is why Moshe Rabeinu uses the lashon of Atem, you are standing before the Rabbanu Shalom, and does not include himself. But if Moshe Rabeinu is talking about standing before the Rabbanu Shalom, he should be included. Not just they, the generation that he's talking to, but he himself is also standing before the Rabbanu Shalom. Why does Moshe Rabeinu say Atem Nitzavim, and he doesn't say all of us are standing before the Rabbanu Shalom? Says this Vasemes because he's talking to the generation who are of Bali Tshuva. And therefore he says, Atem Daika, B'makam Shebali Tshuva, Oimdim Ein Tzadikim Gemur Michelam Lamid. Moshe Rabeinu tells this generation, you are the ultimate Bali Tshuva. You are the ones that had the terrible Yerida of the Cheta Egel, and you stood back up after, and are able to be Atem Nitzavim, and therefore in the place that you, the Bali Tshuva, stand, I, Moshe Rabeinu, don't have the ability to stand. So Atem Nitzavim, you are standing before the Rabbanu Shalom in a greater place, because B'makam Shebali Tshuva Oimdim, and as great as Moshe Rabeinu was, he was a tzaddik. He wasn't about tshuva. He had never fallen to the Cheta Egel. And therefore he tells this generation, the generation who had gone ahead to rectify the Cheta Egel, Atem Nitzavim Hayom. You're standing in a much greater, a much loftier place than me, Moshe Rabeinu, because you are b'makam shebali tshuva oimdim, ain't tzadikim gemurim b'chelam lamed. L'chein haitzi atzmim at a klal. He takes himself out of the klal and says, Atem, you klal Yisrael, are Nitzavim lefnei Hashem Elokeichem. You, the Bali Tshuva, are standing, while me, the tzaddik, says Moshe Rabeinu, are not an as high of a madrega as you Klal Yisrael the Balei Tshuva. Says this Fasemis, this is why immediately after Moshe Rabbeinu standing them up, we find that Moshe Rabbeinu goes ahead and discusses the bris and the Allah, the bris that Klal Yisrael created with the Rabbanu Shalom, and Chalila, the curses that come if Klal Yisrael doesn't do what they're supposed to be doing. Says this Fasemis, V'zes Michas HaParsha, She'edil Ahem Yisra and Zeh. Moshe Rabbeinu is telling them, Sha'al Yedei Shenasu Balei Tshuva Tiknu Beis HaDrachim. A tzaddik only lives in the place of Toiv. A tzaddik doesn't have the ability to have Zedainis Nasin to go ahead and to fix up the Averis and to turn them into something good. A tzaddik doesn't have the ability to take the path which was Ra and to be able to be mahapech it, to flip it over into being something good. But you, Klal Yisrael, says Moshe Rabeinu, you're able to be Mesaken Beis Drachim, the Eitz Hadas Toiv and the part that's Ra as well. V'nitim b'yadam habracha the klala. It's given over to the bracha and the klala that you, the Balei Tshuva, are able to turn around. Shekolza inyan nasa acharachet. This ability to have bracha and klala, toiv and ra, is what the Baal Tshuva is able to do. He's able to take the ra, the klala. He's able to take the path that was not the proper path, the path of the Rasha, that Yazev Rasha Darkoi. He's able to take that path and he's able to go ahead and be mahapich and turn it around by the tshuva that he does, to be able to have zedainis nasikas chuyis. Before they went ahead and did the chet egal, they were only living in one path. There was no possibility of chaim and mavis, of bracha and klala, of a bris and a Allah. They were living only in the place of bracha. But after they went ahead and they did the avera, and then they were able to be mesaken it. Says this Fasemis v'zeh yishun shabalei tshuva shemesaken orches hakokolis. He's able to go ahead and fix up the paths that were crooked. The Baal Tshuva is now able to go ahead and rectify with the tshuva that he does. Tshuva mehava, tshuva meyira, is able to rectify those paths that were crooked, those terrible mistakes that he or the generation has made. He's able to fix it up. And therefore Moshe Rabeinu, right after telling them atem nitzavim hayoim, goes ahead and says, and now you're giving over the bris and the Allah. Now you're giving over the bracha and the klala. Now you have the two options, and you're able to be mesaken both of them, specifically because you are the generation of Balei Tshuva. Says this Fasemes, Moshe Rabeinu wasn't just talking to his generation. Moshe Rabeinu was talking to every single one of us as well. The Gemara in Avodah Zarah tells us, like Hayu b'nei Yisrael ru'uyim la'isachet rak lahirish tshuva, that the Klal Yisrael and that generation wasn't really right to do the chet. It wasn't really befitting their madrega where they were on. They were malachim. They weren't really capable of doing such a terrible avail. The reason why they did it is in order to go ahead and to teach the future generations that there's something called tshuva, that regardless of what a generation may have done, regardless of what a person may have done, they'll always be able to look at the people that had done the chet egel, the worst avera, an avera right after they heard me pia gavura anoichi avaya lekecha leyilcha lehem achem, and nevertheless they created a chet egel. Less than 40 days later, every one of us will be able to go ahead and to look at that generation and say, if they were capable to have atem nitzavim hayoim, if they were capable to stand up like a monument, lefnei Hashem alekechem, in a way of greater than Moshe Rabeinu, then I too am capable. With whatever averis I've done, I also have the capability to stand back up, lefnei Hashem alekechem, and to recognize that in a certain madrega I'm even greater than Moshe Rabeinu. Because b'makam shabalei tshuva oimdim ein tzadikim gmur mechalam lamed. Says this Vasemis ka yitzrichem lahachen ba'avarenu derech hatshuva. That generation was preparing for us the path of tshuva. If not for that generation going through such a terrible fall and being able to stand back up, atem nitzav mayim, atem in a way greater than Moshe Rabbeinu, we would have no hope. They went ahead and the Rebbeinu caused them to do this avera, to teach us that we also have the capability to be able to go ahead and to do derech tshuva, that we too can stand back up and we have the ability to get back up on our feet and to be atem nitzavim hayoim kulchem lefnei Hashem alekechem. This is what this Fasama says is the lesson that Moshe Rabbeinu gives over at the end of his life. Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't just talking to the Dor B'Yaretz. Moshe Rabbeinu is talking to each and every one of us. As we're entering into Rosh Hashanah, as we're into Aseret Tshuva, as we're finishing off Chodesh Elul, Moshe Rabbeinu lets us know that regardless of what you've done, regardless of how far you've fallen, you've never fallen further than the door that went ahead and created the Chet Egel. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, I'm not leaving until I can stand them back up, but not just stand them back up, stand every Yid and every future generation that may do an Aver, may have a falling. Moshe Rabeinu says, Atem Nitzavim. Moshe Rabeinu picks us back up and says, Atem, that key word of Atem, you are able to be in a greater madrega, in a greater place than I, Moshe Rabeinu, am able to be. This is the chizuk that Moshe Rabeinu gives us all the way to the end of his life. This is the chizuk that Moshe Rabeinu gives us right before Rosh Hashanah, the ability to recognize that we can be standing in such a great madrega. We have the ability to be able to go ahead and fix up bracha and klala. We can go ahead and fix up the two drachim when we're able to go ahead and be proper Balei Tshuva. Hashem should help us that we should be zeiche to hear the message of Moshe Rabeinu, to hear the message message of the Rabban Hashem of Shuvi Yisrael Ad Hashem Elokecha. And Hashem will be zeicha to tshuva shalema, will be zeicha to be proper bali tshuva, will be zeicha to rise to the place of the makam shebali tshuva. Have a great Shabbos.